But let's address some more earnings. Spandana Sphoorty on our radar. Padmaja Reddy joins in on the show right now. Padmaja, hi, morning. Good to have you on the show. You've reported a healthy NI of 57%, profit growth of 113, adjusted for that one-time DTA impact. What would you say has contributed to the performance this time around in an otherwise tough quarter?
Yes, the net interest income increased by 57%, and the profit after tax, if it is adjusted to one-time DTA, it increased by 113%. And the AUM increased only by 37%. There are several factors to that. Though the AUM increased only by 37%, but the net interest income increased by 57%. That is one because we have done number of portfolio assignment transactions and also PTC transactions. When we do multiple off-balance sheet transactions for fundraise, there is an edge on that. So compared to term loan transactions, we get a benefit of 150 to 200 basis points because banks, when they do these transactions, they can trade the priority sector portfolio further. We have done with SBI and Bandhan Bank, and when they get this excess portfolio, so some of the banks who are falling short of priority sector, they can further sell this portfolio. So as such, like, there is a huge demand for priority sector. So we are able to negotiate huge, and we were able to do these transactions at sub 10%. So as such, like, there has been significant reduction in the CASTA fund. That is one. And when it comes to term loans, so we apportion the cost, and when it comes to our balance sheet portfolio, whatever the benefit that we get, we upfront book that commission income. For example, on the borrowers, we charge 24%, and we transfer 10% to the banks, and whatever is the margin that is there, which is 14%, we book that 14% commission upfront. As such, like, there has been significant increase in the income because of our balance sheet transactions that include portfolio assignment and PTCs, and that is one reason which has contributed significant increase for the revenue.
Right. The cost of borrowing has come down, Padmaja, despite other NBFCs facing high funding costs. What is your outlook here? Is there a case of further margin expansion from here onwards?
I think for any MFI to sell portfolio, they need to have their own net worth. So that is the portfolio that they can assign. The portfolio created out of net worth is available for portfolio assignment. Today, if you look at our capital adequacy, which is very, very high, that is 51%. We have significant portfolio which is created out of net worth. We have created 2,500 crore portfolio out of our net worth, which is available for assignment and also PTC transactions. No other microfinance company has this kind of portfolio. That is one reason that, like, we are able to reduce our cost of fund substantially. And one more reason, like, there are few other MFIs who have this kind of net worth, but however, as the portfolio is not very well diversified, they are not in a position to do portfolio assignments as many that we do.
So AUMs grew by 37%. What contributed to this growth?
So the AUM grew by 37%, but however, if you look at, like, some of the matured markets, we are largest in Madhya Pradesh. There the growth was just 19%, and followed by Orissa and Karnataka. There also we grew just only by 16% and 17%. We have taken a conscious call not to grow in those states, and the growth has come from smaller states where we have lesser penetration. So we grew by 90% in Rajasthan. So where the overall MFI penetration is very, very low, and again, like, we have very few branches. So we are looking at the ground level. So we are only growing in the states where the overall penetration is very, very low. We wanted to really expand in Assam, but however, looking at the multiple MFIs already operating out there, we decided not to really start our operations. And this year, we are looking at growing to 6,700 crore. We are very much on track in terms of growing to 6,700 crore AUM.
What's your AUM growth guidance for FY20?
So we are at 5,500 crore as we speak today. So I think by 31st March 2020, we'll be achieving 6,700 crore AUM.
Okay, despite sluggishness in the economy, disbursements grew at 45% on an annual basis. Which are the segments showing signs of higher growth according to you?
Microfinance loans are used for income generation purposes, so they're used for livelihoods. So if I look at as we operate in rural areas, so the loans are used for purchase of buffaloes, the loans are used for purchase of sheep and goat, the loans are used for working capital for the small businesses that they're doing, the grocery shops, book shops, fancy shops. So as such, because there is no sluggishness in terms of these businesses, there could be some sluggishness in terms of discretionary. So for example, if somebody is already having 2 cars, so if they're looking at buying a 3rd car, maybe looking at the electronic cars coming into the market, they might be postponing. But again, somebody who is planning to buy a buffalo, I don't think that there is a kind of postponement. So as such, in this particular segment, so there is no kind of slowdown. So the loans are being used for livelihoods. The loans are not being used for discretionary things. We have absolutely not seen any kind of slowdown, and whatever the demand that we have seen last year, absolutely there is no change in terms of demand for loans. So it's only instead of growing by 70%, if we are able to grow only by 40%, to that extent, we are to acquire staff, we are to acquire borrowers, but again, demand side, there is absolutely no change.
Right. You continued expanding your branch network as well. Which are the areas and geographies that showed strong growth momentum, and which are the areas you're looking for expansion in?
We are growing very cautiously. So for us to expand our branch network, so first of all, if I have to open 20 branches, I need 20 branch managers. Without a trained branch manager, if I open a branch, the branch can really go for a task. So we are growing very, very cautiously. And again, as I said, so there are few markets, matured markets, where there are multiple players. And in some of the markets, some MFIs overnight, they have scaled up and they have opened multiple branches. And again, borrowers they got too many loans, and today the staff are spending so much of time in terms of doing collections in those markets. For example, Madhya Pradesh, for example, Orissa. So we are not opening branches. We are just letting existing branches to grow. So there are certain pockets like Rajasthan, for example, Gujarat, for example, Kerala. So where there are very few players operating, where there is scope in terms of opening new branches. So specific pockets we are still opening new branches, and where we have the comfort in terms of many new branch managers who are available, who are trained, and who have the capability in terms of operating branches.
Okay, what's the market share you're eyeing in the MFI space? SFBs and banks, they still command more than 70% of MFI loans. Do you see this shifting more in favor of that?
Different markets, for example, MP, we are the largest microfinance organization today, and Orissa, we are the largest microfinance organization today. So the market share just depends upon because there are some regional players, for example, Jharkhand, we are the largest microfinance organization. In Chhattisgarh, we are the largest microfinance organization. So it really varies. In different states, there are regional players who have the largest market share. But overall, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we will get back to our leadership position. So we want to be the leader of the microfinance industry. But however, yes, as you rightly said that some of the small finance banks, and they still have the largest market share in terms of microfinance, though they wanted to diversify themselves. But again, microfinance is the place where they have the comfort. But again, having said that, But today, they have liabilities, like they have to largely focus on liabilities because like they cannot borrow from banks. Banks, lending to banks is not a priority sector. So at the most, like they can sell their portfolio to banks, but again, like they cannot raise term loans from banks. So they have to largely focus on raising liabilities. So that is their focus point. And again, like the flexibility that we have in terms of opening branches, they don't have, like because they have to get approval from RBI. So the compliances that they have in terms of meeting, so like it's a very complex structure that like they got into by becoming a bank. So I don't think that like in terms of growing, so small finance bank will be able to compete with any NBFC MFI, particularly in terms of growth.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us then, Padmaja, and talking us through the latest there at Spandana.